Good day, Northwest, and any other users out there who are watching our cast. This is our second cast that we're doing on our study of 1 Month to Live. Good day, Aaron. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Terry, and you?
Doing well so far, doing well. Being quarantined still seems to be going okay. Not too bad. We're surviving. How about you guys?
Yeah, good. I haven't gone stir crazy yet with the family, so all is good.
Excellent, excellent. Like I said, this is our second cast. Our first one, I don't know if you saw this, Aaron, but we had like 70 something views. So I feel like
Wow.
this has gone viral. This is global now. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no stopping it.
Yeah,
So,
remind me how many people you have in your family?
well,
68?
exactly. Well, that's like twice my number of Facebook friends. So we
Oh,
got some strangers who are watching these things, which is fun.
that is fun. That's great. I hope it's worthwhile.
So we're back to 1 Month to Live. Chris and Carrie Shook. We got to thank them for the book, for the material that we're using. We are on what we'll call session 14. We're going to do a quick little video session for you guys today, and we'll see where we go. As we know, this is, we've covered this in 4 sections, and we are still on the owl section. This will be the last chapter of the owl section, Aaron.
Last one.
With maybe we should do a separate cast on the animals, right? It was so interesting to categorize that as monkey, bear, owl, and deer. And so we'll start the deer section after this, but maybe we do a separate cast on that. What do you think of that?
Yeah, no, that was fun, and I think it's a good reminder for everybody. Yeah, to which animal they are. We know which one looks like you, but people might forget which ones they are.
Looks like you right there, the grumpy one. So today's lesson is about stop signs, right? Road signs, I should say, road signs.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's a lot of good ones in here.
There are a lot of good ones.
Radiation area, rest area, bathrooms, hopefully with toilet paper.
Wrong way.
Right.
So we encounter a lot of road signs in our lives, don't we?
We sure do. And it's one of those things that we have to, they're there for us to quickly take in and make decisions on,
Exactly.
Information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're starting with a quote from C.S. Lewis this day.
Yes. Yeah, miracles are a retelling in small letters of the very same story, which is written across the whole world in letters too large for some of us to see. C.S. Lewis is a deep guy.
He's a very deep guy. Maybe you could enlighten us on this one. Give us some tips.
Yeah, I may not be the best person for translating C.S. Lewis, but it's one of those things that, if we're really to understand, the complexities of the universe, right? If we look up to the skies and we can see his glory, and we can look, to the mountains and see his glory, sometimes we get so used to those things that maybe we're missing the miracle of what they are, or just, the birds in the sky and the squirrels or the flowers. Now we're almost to spring. Well, I think we made it, except for the snow we got yesterday.
Right.
Yeah, but sometimes we miss, the miracles that are there every day, and so sometimes, or they're written across the big sky. So sometimes he really has to make it simpler for us to actually see and understand.
Right. Make it personal for us.
Make it personal.
Yep. Absolutely. That way, it's right in our lives, right in front of us.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to stub your toe on it before you actually see it sometimes.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's a good analogy. Thank you for that.
Yeah, anytime. Watch out for your toe.
Exactly. I'll be careful. And then another quote at the beginning of the chapter. Actually, this was expect great things from God and attempt great things for God, from William Carey. Now, I really liked this quote, again, at the beginning of the chapter. And I like the way that this image portrays it, because oftentimes we can expect great things or attempt great things, but we leave out the God piece, right? And then we wonder why didn't great things happen? I attempted great things. I expected great things. Well, if you try to do this independently of God, and I think we're going to talk about this in our lesson a little bit, then that doesn't always work out in our favor.
Yeah. One of my favorite authors, uses it as with God. Right. What a lot of times we leave out the with God. We try it on our own, or we think we're doing it for God, but unless we're doing it with God, we're probably not ending up where he wants us to be.
Right. And if I could chase a rabbit here for a second too, Philippians 4:13 is a verse that many of us know. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And we love this verse. We love to quote this verse. We love to use this in times of trouble or in times of need. But this to me has the same foundation, that if we leave God or leave Christ out of this, then we're not going to get anywhere. We're just going to get stuck. And so we need to be paying attention, and we'll see more in this lesson about where our focus is: the with God, the for God, the from God, through Christ. This just doesn't mean that we can do anything that we want to do and we'll have the strength to do that. But this is through Christ, and we can't take that out of context.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point, because really we're gonna talk about miracles, a little bit. I know we started this in class, but miracles, and a lot of times we want a miracle, for me, right? Very personal. I need this, done.
Right.
And at the end of the day, is it through Christ, for Christ, with Christ, or is it really just for me?
Right. Just my own miracle, just because I want it.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So again, we're going to talk about miracles, and there's so often, that people would say, I really need a miracle to turn around my life. And there's no way we should not say that God's not in the miracle business. But I guess what we have to be careful with is he's not a genie, right? We don't rub the lamp and expect, to be catered to.
Right.
And he's not going to grant our wishes, right?
Right.
But he does do miracles, and he does intervene in the world, in our lives. And we do have to be able to recognize that when it actually does happen.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. He's not just a genie, but we should be paying attention, right? We should be attentive to the miracles that are happening around us and in our lives.
That's right. I know we referenced this theologian named Dr. Seuss a couple weeks ago, and today, there was another one in the chapter, the great theologian Yogi Bear, who once said, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. Yeah, it's one of those things that we are going to be confronted with things. And I even know that last lesson was about, peace and waiting on God. Sometimes he asks us to do things, and we need to be there to actually take an action when there's a road sign, right? When there's a T and we're going down life's road, we've got to be able to actually take one of those T's.
Right. And sometimes in life we blow past the road signs, don't we? We
sure do.
We just drive right through them, or just don't pay attention to them, especially in construction season, which we are seem to continuously live in. That we don't pay attention that the lanes come into one, that they all merge, and so we just feel like we do what we want, and we just miss road signs. We miss road signs on the road, and we miss road signs in our lives.
That's right. Absolutely. That reminds me of something, when I'm traveling with my kids and we ever see a sign that says road work ahead, they all three always say, well, I hope so. Sometimes we misread road signs, right? And yes, of course, we are hoping that the road is working ahead.
Exactly.
But that's not really what those signs mean.
Right.
Okay. Sorry for that digression into
No, I like
roads.
it. That's good. Between Yogi Berra and the Superman here, and we're all good. Back on track.
And Crazy Rosa, back on track. Yeah, so today we're actually going to be talking about a story from 2 Kings 4, the widow's oil. And we're going to kind of read parts of this as we go through. But it really is leading us through what happens when we may need a miracle in our life.
Right. And to pay attention to the road signs along the way.
And to pay attention to the road signs along the way, absolutely, because we are all going to get to these points in our lives when a miracle seems to be the only way that's going to actually matter in our life. We've done everything we can, and unfortunately, that's what usually happens. We do everything within our control without first taking it to God, which I think is the first road sign. So it's very interesting. The 2 Kings chapter 4. Thank you for saying it was interesting.
Absolutely.
2 Kings 4 starts out this way. The wife of a man from the company of the prophets cried out to Elisha, your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that he revered the Lord. But now his creditor is coming to take my 2 boys as his slaves. It's interesting that there's really only one way that we can start when it comes to a miracle, and that's admit we actually have a need.
Right.
And this poor widow, her husband died, the creditor was coming. She had to say, help.
Right.
And she took the man of God that she knew to be able to help her address that situation.
Hmm. Yeah, oftentimes it's hard for us to admit needs, right? We
Mm.
don't like to be transparent. We talked about this a little bit last time, that it's hard for us to be transparent. And I love the way that the book puts it. Of course, we have to admit it. We hate to admit it, I'm sorry, when we have a problem, much less acknowledge that we can't fix it ourselves. We would rather hide our troubles from others, pretend they don't exist, or try to manage them on our own. Often we complain about our troubles, but that's not the same thing as being vulnerable about them and about our inadequacy to solve our own problems. And yet, here's the and yet moment, and yet God cannot work in our lives until we acknowledge that his intervention is essential and we invite him into our situation.
Mm. That's brilliantly said. And I like the one part of this is complaining is not the same thing as admitting.
Exactly. How many times do we do that, right? We maybe
Oh,
complain
absolutely.
about something pretty loudly and to everyone
Oh,
we
loud.
know, especially on Facebook, but that
Yes.
admitting that we have a need and being
Mm.
vulnerable about
Yes. Admitting and being vulnerable. And so often it's, we go to other places to look for that help, right? Where else do we go and look for the help rather than to God? I mean, there's so many different places we go, and I think we have to admit that those usually don't work.
it, right? Yeah, just from the verse Philippians 4:13, right? I can do all things. We sometimes just
Mm.
go to the I piece. We
Oh,
stop right
yes.
there. I can do all things, right? And that's where we just kind of shut our brain off for the last half of that verse.
That's right. That's right. So once we've admitted, what happens next? And I think we go on to the next verse. So
Mhm.
she's taken it to Elisha, and this is his response. Elisha replied to her, "How can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house?" Hmm.
This is a stop sign, right? Hold on a
It's a
second.
That's right. Yeah, he's asking, first, what are you expecting of me? And what is there that you have that might be able to help along this way? It's so interesting that a lot of times we go to God and we say, "Hey, I've got nothing," you
Mhm.
know, absolutely nothing. And this is her response after he asked that question to her. "Your servant has nothing there at all except a little oil."
Right.
Except a little oil. She's now starting to realize, oh, you know what? I'm destitute. I'm about to lose everything. Oh, wait, you've asked me what I've got. You know what? I've actually got something. I've got some oil. What would you like to do with that, Lord?
Right. In her busyness, right, in her attempt maybe to just talk about her problem, he says,
Mm,
stop, hold on a second. Let's start with what you have. Let's look around. And it got her to
yeah,
stop and pay attention.
that's right. And I think that's so important because God works where we are, right, and with what we have. I mean, we shouldn't always expect him that every need, all of a sudden something drops out of heaven in our laps. Oh, here you go. I mean, where are you in life? What do you have? Who are your friends? What can you offer in this relationships? And let him start from there.
Right. Yeah, that's one essential ingredient is what are we contributing to this miracle?
Mm,
We have to start with something of us, right? That's one of the great components of a miracle that has God at it is that he takes part of what we have, even a little oil, and does
that's right.
something with it.
Yeah, you see this with Jesus in the New Testament, the wedding at Cana, right? It's grab the wine vats, fill them with water. Let's see what we can do. Or
Right.
when he's out with the 5,000, let's see how many loaves and fishes we have. Let's see where we can start with what we have today, and then let God do the miracle.
Exactly. And a lot of times we don't want to turn internally and look at those things like what do we have to begin with? What is my resource that I can contribute? Is it my time? Is it my energy? Is it my attitude? Is it some ability that he's given me already? What can I contribute to help be a part of this miracle?
That's perfectly said. And so as we go on to the next, sign here is we already read the verse. She first said, I have nothing to give. Oh, wait, I have a little oil. That's all of a sudden she's starting to realize that, and to begins to take that to God and say, yes, I do have something. Now, what can you do with this for me?
Right. That's the U-turn part. Like, I don't have anything.
Mm,
What do I have? I have a little oil. Oh, wait a minute. I do have something. I can
I,
contribute. Right.
I,
That's the U-turn that we have to accept in our lives when we're looking for that miracle.
that's right. We stop and address our situation, and then, look for what we can take right back to God, to begin this miracle.
Right.
It's really is amazing,
Right.
because it really is making sure that He is the only one who can get the credit. Yes, we've got to say, oh, look, I only have 5 loaves and 2 fishes to feed, hundreds of thousands of people, or I only have a little oil to try to live through. That's so clear that that's not going to be the miracle. It
Right.
has to be God to add to it.
Right. Absolutely. And it makes it so much more, like we were saying earlier, it makes it so much more personal rather than just fish and loaves falling from the sky. Well, wait a second. He actually started with something I had. He didn't give us something completely independent. He started with the seed of what I had to really make it personal and make it rich in my life.
That's right. It's interesting you said it that way, because in the Old Testament, when God was providing the manna and the quail, it required nothing of them, and so often that they started to complain about it.
Right.
Because it required nothing of them, and even after He warned them not to collect too much, too often they did, and then it stunk. And it really does take something from us a lot of times to feel invested in these miracles.
Right. Something from us that's more than just complaining.
Yeah, more than just complain. That's a good point.
Yeah.
We've got that part down, I think.
Yes, we do. So the U-turn, right? So let's think about U-turns in our lives. Maybe the U-turn could be a negative attitude that turns into a positive attitude. Maybe it could be despair that turns into peace in our own lives. Maybe it's turning from blame to accepting responsibility. Maybe it's just turning from fear to faith. There's a U-turn that's part of every miracle. And that's part of the stop sign, part of the sign that we need to see, and the road sign that we need to see in our lives is, what's my U-turn in all of this?
That's right. New Testament word for that is repent, right? Turn away,
Right.
Right. Head in that other direction. Obviously in today's environment, fear is huge.
Right.
But how can we show faith instead of just fear?
Exactly. Yeah. And what if she wanted to just hold on to that little bit of oil that she had, right? What if we just want to hold on to that little bit of fear that we have, or that little bit of blaming, or that little bit of frustration, or that little bit of negativity? What if we want to hold on to that? And God says, no, this is a U-turn. I want you to I want you to go the other way. Think differently about this.
That's right. Because that was her next meal. That little oil could have been her next meal. And she was going to sacrifice that. Look, all I have is this. Are you going to take this?
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, then it turned.
So what's the next road sign along the way?
Oh, it looks like a yield sign.
Oh, it sure does.
Oh yeah. As I teach Anna to drive, yield signs are difficult. What does it mean?
I mean, sort of slow down and be cautious and possibly stop if necessary.
If necessary, that's right. It's kind of ambiguous compared to some of these others.
Right.
So this is picking up from verse 3. Elisha said, "Go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons. Pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it on the side." She left him and afterwards shut the door behind her and her sons. They brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. When all the jars were full, she said to her son, "Bring me another one." But he replied, "There's none left. There's no jars left." Then the oil stopped flowing. She went and told the man of God, and he said, "Go sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your sons can live on what is left."
Mm-hmm.
It's the yield sign is an interesting one, and not easy to explain by any means.
Right.
But it's really, what am I going to be doing, right? What am I going to be doing next? How am I going to be helping other people with the miracle? How am I going to interpret that miracle that just happened in my life? A yield is really about being aware of what's going on around you in many cases.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a great way to put it, is interpretation, right? It's yielding. It's yielding to God's power in our lives. It's
Mm,
yielding to submit my own frustrations and my own failings and my own shortcomings. And
yeah.
it's really situationally dependent, right? The yield
Mm,
sign. What does yield mean? Well, what does it mean in that situation? And here she got a pretty good, clear explanation of yielding. Yielding means do what I'm asking you to do, but sometimes it's not always that clear, right? It's just like when you and Anna come up on a yield sign out on the road. Well, is it really clear what we need to do here? You have to pay attention to your circumstances, your situation, and how's
mm.
the weather, and is there traffic, and or there kids playing. I mean, the yield sign is really for us to put our antenna up and pay attention.
To pay attention, that's right. Because it's again not about focusing on ourselves, which we do really well. It's about focusing on what's around us, right? And that may mean that we may need to serve other people through this miracle. We need to get out of ourselves. It may be reminding us, of that U-turn, and to not go back into that situation where we once were full of blame or fear.
Right.
Just be aware.
Absolutely. Yielding to the needs of others. Exactly. Yeah. I like
Yeah,
the way you put that.
yeah. So that's really the end of the story.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the miracle came, from something she had, and to bless her and her family, and others through that.
Right.
You know, and God asks us to give what we have, no matter how small it would be, right? That smallness of that oil, huge blessing, to her at the end, and she didn't see it at first.
Right, right. And that's the obedience piece, right? We don't like that word sometimes, obedience, but obedience can bring blessing. And the obedience of following these signs, right? And recognizing that, okay, I'm going to do what you say. I may not see it from here. I may not understand it. I may not like it. I may not like that I've got to change my attitude. I may not like that I've got to stop. I may not like the one way I have to admit that I have a problem. I may not like yielding. But paying attention to these signs brings blessings and brings miracles. Too many times I feel like we miss miracles because we're not obedient.
Mm. Yeah, obedience is tough, though.
It
Yeah.
absolutely is. It absolutely is.
But we also know that when we're not obedient to following a sign, it can be disastrous repercussions, right? You go through a stop sign. You go down a one-way street the wrong way. These are dangerous things if we're not paying attention to those signs.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So there was an episode of New Amsterdam. I don't know if anybody watches this show. I talked about this a little bit
You
in
did.
this is a couple of weeks ago. But
There's
this
blood and guts.
yeah, there's hopefully no blood and guts in the description here, but
Okay.
this is Max. Max works at the New Amsterdam Hospital, and he's kind of an admitted atheist, and he runs across a prayer group in one of the episodes. And the prayer group is down in the lobby of the hospital, just praying for people as they walk by and just praying for situations. And Max wrestles with this, and it's a really great episode. If you've got a few minutes and you want to take time to watch it while we're quarantined, just message us, and I can tell you which episode it is. But one of the comments that the leader of the prayer group says that miracles, right? Miracles are inside of you, and you just need to recognize that they are the shoreline, he calls it, between what you understand and what you don't understand. And a lot of times, if we don't follow those road signs and we just want to stand on what we know, then we're not going to see the miracle. We're not going to have miracles in our lives. We have to realize that there's going to be a component of this that I don't understand. I don't understand where all this oil came from. I don't understand where all this fish came from, right? There's a component that is the God piece that I think people like Max wrestle with.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we like to understand where everything is. We want to know the science behind it. And that's not the point of a miracle.
Exactly.
I mean, if we can understand it, then and again, we try to put God in that box and make him and for us, and it's logical because we want to understand God.
Right.
But yet, if God really can be understood by us in our humanness and predicted, that's probably not the God we want.
Exactly.
We want something bigger than those circumstances.
Exactly. If he's just a genie in our pocket, we want a miracle and we pull him out, then that's not what we want.
No, absolutely not. Okay, so you're recommending this show?
Yeah, actually I do. Yeah, it's been a great show. You have to bring Kleenex though, because it's pretty emotional. Every episode is very emotional. And so, but there's some great points and some really good, it's very feel good. I mean, it's a little bit fictional, right? Because
Okay.
it's a great medical drama, but there are some great points. It's worth seeing.
Yeah. Well, I just have two comments there. I'm saving my Kleenex in case my toilet paper runs out.
Understood. Okay, got it.
Understood. Yeah, and now I can't remember what the second one was. Can you
You're
believe
wearing your
that?
scrubs pants? Is that your second point? Like, hey, speaking of
No,
scrubs.
no. Oh, I know what it was. Speaking of scrubs, that was another show.
Oh.
In today's environment, are we praying for a miracle for COVID, right?
Right.
Or are we just expecting that our isolation is actually just going to do the trick, right? Can we actually believe that God can step in and do a miracle for us?
Right. Boy, that's a whole nother topic. We'll have to do another cast. I mean, are our prayers big enough? Are our
Big
desires
enough.
for God's miracles big enough, right? Or are we just praying for surgical miracles, right? Just one thing and one fixed and one thing to be better. Or do we just need to pray the biggest prayers that we can find, that we can dream up, right? And then
That's
give
right. Absolutely. We better stop before we have to answer that question.
I know, that's right. That's for next time. That's for the comments on Facebook or YouTube. Go to the link below and
Go to the link below.
yeah, we'll have to put that in, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's our lesson for today. So
yeah, Terry, it was a pleasure.
pleasure is all mine, Aaron. Thank you very much.
Pleasure seeing you from a distance. Yeah.
Yeah, you from a distance also. So at least we're quarantined and sanitary. So it's good to know.
Yeah, I can hear Bette Midler singing in the song in the background that from a distant song. And for everybody under the age of 30, they wouldn't get that reference, right?
Oh yeah, you're right. So we should, speaking of that, we should do some singing maybe somewhere along the way. I mean, not for me because I have a terrible singing voice, but maybe from the Campbells, we should incorporate a little bit of that if this thing keeps going on and on and on.
Nice try. Not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for your time today, Aaron. Hopefully it was good for you and good for everyone watching.
Yeah, thanks, Sari. And yeah, it was a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. So we'll see you next time.
Okay, sounds good. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.